Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to what I believe is the final webinar of Big Share Week with the Shared Services Forum UK. My name's Karen Young, and I'm delighted, as always, to be working with the Shared Services Forum. Thank you for joining as well on this cold, icy, windy, snowy afternoon around the UK, I hope that you'll find this webinar of interest and certainly give you some food for thought about talent management and recruitment in the coming months and indeed years. I recently hosted the Lean Network meeting for the Shared Services Forum in Manchester a couple of weeks ago, and that brought me to thinking that for many of you, you would be interested in digital technology, data science, personalised communications in the recruitment process. And so today I'm going to talk about a model called Find and Engage, and that model and how we run it at Hays, and give you some insight into how we see the world of recruitment and talent changing. First things first, just to give you a little bit of background in terms of our organisation at Hays. The numbers in front of you give you an idea of the size and scale of our business. We recruit extensively across the globe. When I joined Hays, which is, 21 years ago, in 1996, we were predominantly a UK business operational in Australia, and starting to think about going into continental Europe, because I do remember people asking around at the time if anyone could speak fluent French and fancied forging a career in France, which I didn't, but a colleague did, and he's still there. But I hope that you can see in front of you the measure of the impact that we have on the world of work, recruiting into 63,000 permanent positions last year and over 200,000 temporary placements. And many of you on the webinar today will, of course, have businesses that are of a similar size and scale, and indeed many that are larger. And actually, I'm absolutely certain that most of you will have businesses that in themselves have more complexities than indeed a recruitment business, which is actually quite a simple business, albeit different if you're operating on a global scale. And I think, really today it's to talk to you about how recruitment is changing, the impact on talent management, and for those responsible for any number of reports, direct reports, teams, departments, indeed whole shared services centres. As I say, I hope you get something to take away from the webinar today. So I mentioned that I'd hosted the Lean Network in Manchester, and I thought it'd be pertinent to just put a couple of quotes up on the slide in front of you. Obviously, shared services and global business services continue to operate to drive efficiencies, and that brought me to think about that in the recruitment process. I've mentioned that I've recruited at Hays for over 21 years so far, and I've got to admit, for many years, where I came across Lean was always prevalent in manufacturing businesses that I was recruiting into senior finance management and leadership positions, predominantly in the Essex and East Anglia area, and that often came up on a person and job description. We want someone that understands lean processes, and it always made sense, if you like, the systematic approach to identifying and then eliminating any waste in a process, eliminating any non-value add activity, continuous improvement, and indeed customer satisfaction, which I didn't mean to say last, by the way. And you can see in front of you a couple of definitions there, and I think the second one in particular, in recruiting, human capital supply chain activities transform relationships and data, and you can see there ad responses, yes, CVs, resumes, but also social networking profiles into candidates who are delivered to hiring managers. And whether you're working with a direct recruitment team in-house in your own organisation, or with a third-party supplier, a recruitment consultancy agency, or indeed you've got a service provision from an agency on-house, I do think that the key point there is, how quickly can the best possible talent be brought to you or your hiring managers is absolutely key and pertinent, particularly as we know that we're in pretty skill-scarce markets in most of the professional markets. Arguably, you can say lean principles could be applied to any process, like recruiting. So if we take waste, eliminating activities that don't directly interface with a candidate or a hiring manager, that would be waste in my view. Understanding what causes change or variability in the recruiting process, and to apply techniques to either eliminate that variability or adapt to it. ability to streamline process and use technology to cope with an ever-changing environment. We're all in that position in most of the processes that we engage with. And finally, I guess to fully appreciate the value of recruiters, make sure that they're used to the best ability and therefore worth the money that you pay, because actually they are focused on activities that create true value. And although it might sound a little bit tongue-in-cheek, I clearly do believe that when I'm involved with a recruitment process that I do add value. So I'm now going to take you through Find and Engage. That's what we've come to call this at Hays, and if you like, using our business purely as a case study to share some practices that we at Hays see as our best practice and key for our own business, and I hope give you some food for thought for your own and how you approach recruitment in your shared service function. So Find and Engage, it's clearly defined whereby the candidate is found, and that sounds pretty simple, but it is. It's about recruiters using sourcing tools and using data analytics to help prepare shortlists so that they also encompass, and this is really important, passive job seekers, using more than just an application to identify if a prospective candidate is approachable. And this is where you can see on the slide in front of you this shift from advertise and apply, whereby candidates are out in the old days looking in newspapers and sending off written applications, these days searching job boards and finding a job that they think looks interesting and then applying through to the candidate being found. So I'll give you an example from our business. Through our integrated candidate database with LinkedIn, we're able to search beyond just Hays connections. And in addition to this, should someone update their profile, this will send Hays a signal identifying that that individual has got a higher likelihood of approachability about a career change and a new job. So Find and Engage, it's really a result of significant developments in data, in artificial intelligence, in digital technology, whereby the recruitment process is being enhanced by the opportunities that are presented by science. So why is it fundamentally different? Why is Find and Engage fundamentally different to advertise and apply? It's because advertise and apply can only indicate a candidate's immediate interest and approachability. They're already actively looking, they're already searching through job boards and job adverts and looking to apply. And I'll show you a little bit later on what that looks like in terms of what percentage of the market you then get potentially coming forward for your position. And I have to say, although certainly at Hays we are capitalising on the shift that's happening in the market and working very much in the model of Find and Engage, we still have a best practice approach to advertise and apply, which is, I would see as a more traditional route. But that means we're also in a position to better access the active candidate population as well as this passive candidate population that I'm talking about. And an example of that would be the deep-rooted expertise we've got in our own business on, for example, how to write an advert for search engine optimization purposes. So if you think about the scale of our business, so 63,000 permanent placements, 200,000 people into temporary positions, the amount of data we have coming through our business. So I look after our accountancy and finance business in the UK, which is about 400-odd recruitment consultants who are effectively placing someone into a finance job somewhere in the UK round about every 10 minutes. And we are reviewing and processing about 14,000 job applications purely to accountancy and finance every single week. It gives us data. It also gives us a lot of data knowing which keywords target candidates are searching for on specific job boards, so that we can then obviously use that in our own job advert purposes. And overall, in the model of Find and Engage, the Hays fundamental differentiators still rely on that deep-rooted sector expertise and relationships with candidate communities, whether that's into HR, IT, finance, etc. But it's given a competitive advantage, if you like, that's driven by the scale and the depth of insight in the data provided by our technology. And the best way to sum that up, I suppose, is it's a blend of the art of recruitment, but also the science that is coming into most professional functions these days and into our lives and the world of work. So the approach Find and Engage aims to put relationship at the heart of recruitment, very much so, but it uses digital technology and data science to operate on a scale that really previously just hadn't been possible, I don't think, in recruitment. So newly available tools and techniques allow our recruiters to use the science as an enabler to find the most valuable candidates, the most relevant candidates. And that is done by using these approachability signals, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, and marketing signals, so that our recruiters are able to uncover this passive talent, the people not yet actively looking at applying for jobs, and actually uncover them exclusively. The engage piece is the art. So for over 50 years, or 50 years this year, Hays has been building relationships with talent pools and building our sector expertise, as I say, whether that's legal, accounting and finance, HR, IT, engineering, by helping develop the careers of many candidates, many individuals, and by understanding their needs, we've got these long-standing trusted relationships. So now with big data and data science, we can just provide more insightful information to our consultants to further enhance their ability to meet client requirements. So why are we leaders in Find? Well, if you like, the power of data science enables Hays to fundamentally execute two key components of the Find and Engage model, and that's enhanced shortlisting and it's enhanced marketing, which you can see in front of you. So enhanced shortlisting, this is about having unprecedented access to the richest data sources and alongside sophisticated algorithms, something I certainly didn't think in '96 I'd be talking about, but it does enable us to shortlist both active and passive candidates. And examples of this include a profile update on LinkedIn that, as I've mentioned, sends the Hays system an alert, and that's pretty unique to us. Or when a candidate engages on the Hays website, a consultant can search by the candidate's last online activity, even if they do not decide to apply for that particular job at that stage, we can still reach out to them and engage. And yes, it's a bit Big Brother, but no different to how the Tesco Club card started and all the marketing techniques that have developed since. So to give an example of that would be that a part qualified accountant clicks onto our website and looks at our journey ahead, which is all about the career journey as a newly qualified accountant and the choices that are ahead of them, which gives us obviously both an approachability signal but also an indicator that potentially that person is coming up to qualification, links that and connects that with our database, and enables us to reach out and put that career phone call through to ask how we can help. The enhanced marketing bit, again, through marketing automation and advanced data segmentation and assessment, we're able to engage with candidates in a personalised manner at scale, so sending tailored career advice related content to candidates. And that, again, if I use my part qualified example, could be exactly that we push out the journey ahead marketing to part qualified accountants to help them with career choices at a later stage in their career. But that engagement data is then captured, it's used to identify approachability, and then of course consultants are able to search based on those individuals reading the email. And it's a pretty good indicator to help us to find them. And if I think about, you know, my years of recruitment, it eliminates the need to do things like send out teams across the country to stand on pavements on cold, icy days outside exam locations like we used to do in the past to help engage with these people, to have these people ready when you need to recruit them for your business. Now that for me is operating in a more lean way. It's eliminating waste, it's getting to people faster, and it is certainly working much harder in terms of the element of customer satisfaction and customer relationship to talk to people about content that they might actually be interested in hearing about. And that leads me to the Hays Approachability Index, which is what you can see, or a diagram that you can see in front of you now. So all of these types of signals here have formed what we've developed as the Hays Approachability Index. You see, recruitment is simple, but actually more complex perhaps than you thought. Again, so using digital technology, artificial intelligence, leveraging data science tools, software and techniques, the Hays Approachability Index enables consultants to predict a candidate's approachability and likely interest in a role, and that's with both the active and the passive candidates. So it's based on three kind of core components, if you like. So signals of activity and interest. So a candidate might engage with that career advice content in an email, or we know that they've conducted a search on the Hays website. enhancing a candidate profile, so someone might update their profile outside of the Hays database on something like LinkedIn, and then the personal relationship, and by that I mean the face-to-face engagement that further builds trust and expands the relationships with our candidate communities, which is absolutely critical. So that's the find part. So now on to engage, and why we're leaders in engage. Apologies, I've just clicked too fast on my slides. There we go. It's the power and importance of content, and content is a really key component to find and engage. And that might be where some of you might be thinking, well, goodness, how on earth does an organisation like ours, as large as it is in your own business, potentially do something like this? And I'll come back to that at the close. But by regularly interacting with candidates, both in person and digitally through content, we're able to drive meaningful interactions that help foster relationships as well as grow our candidate communities. So again, if I look at my own career and what I was doing in terms of recruitment activities in the late 90s, that began to change when something like LinkedIn came in, and what I do now around content for social media, I just wouldn't have envisaged that in a million years when I was sat there in 1996. So we do spend a lot of time and resource and expertise on career advice, on market insights, on thought leadership, commenting on trending topics, providing tangible information related to a candidate's persona. So the Hays Finance Content Programme around the DNA of a finance director, DNA of a partner, DNA of a head of marketing. All of that together helps to raise our profile as a trusted advisor. Our connection growth and engagement at Hays is building, again, at an unprecedented rate. So just to give you an example, today we've got over 13 million interactions and over 800,000 new candidates connecting with Hays every single month, every single 4 weeks. And I mentioned previously in my business, which is the UK finance business, 14,000 individual applications for UK finance jobs a week. And you can see in front of you over 2 million followers on our LinkedIn page, and actually that means that if people are following us, they're twice as likely to apply for one of the jobs that we advertise than people that aren't, because there's more trust there. And you can see again the Viewpoint blogs, which is where we host our social media content, and 2 million page views. So there is a tremendous amount of power in that in terms of how we engage with our candidate and client communities. So I guess that's all very good and perhaps a little bit interesting, but why is it? Why right here, why right now? Why is it relevant today? Recruitment is a wasteful process, or it certainly can be. There's a lot of non-value-add activities, including everything that has to do with handling electronic or paper data. To take a normal recruiting day, potentially in an agency, when a recruiter will review hundreds of CVs or electronic profiles, screening emails, screening CVs, conducting interviews in the office with candidates, updating with candidates on the phone or in person, updating with hiring managers on the phone or in person, checking that we've got the eligibility to work in the UK. Determining what adds value is, of course, one of the most challenging aspects of any lean process improvement, whatever function you're looking at. So how do we add value? How does someone add value in recruitment? Again, whether it's agency or, again, whether that's someone sat in-house in your own business. I would say it's every time a recruiter is speaking directly with a candidate to either determine their skills or to talk to them about joining an organisation, talk to them about attending an interview, answering their unique human questions about the job that they're going to interview for, or indeed speaking to a hiring manager about a potential candidate or a job they need to hire. It's networking, it's communicating, it's engaging. That's, if you like, the front-end process of recruitment. That's the value-add things, and that's a bit where this model helps us to focus more on, so that we do make the process leaner, and I think that's really key. And you know, this isn't intended to be a sales pitch. It's a sharing of best practice and a sharing what we do at Hays, you know, at the forefront of global recruitment and using the art and the science. But the reasons in front of you are the reasons I believe that we're leading on this new and, if you like, more lean model. So we've talked about the content, the data science, the fact that we see the whole end-to-end recruitment process, the scale of our business that enables us to have insight and all those years of data, so we can put the analytics over that, but also, last but not least, the people. You know, the person-to-person dynamic, which means that engagement has to and will remain very much at the heart of our model. You know, if robots could do it all, they'd already be doing it in recruitment, in my view. But we are in digital and social evolution. The way we recruit is changing. Finding candidates is changing even faster. So on a very practical scale, what does this all mean? What does the change all mean? And so you can imagine we're often asked by clients, you will have asked us, I'm sure, you know, what do we do to attract talent? And of course, I'm reluctant to share all of our secrets, but opening the lid a little bit on what we can do to help boost your brand through our extensive network. As a business, our objective is to attract the best qualified candidates, so whether that's for construction, accountancy, IT, etc. But how we go about it is changing. So it really is no longer just a case of posting a job onto a job board or onto a company web page, or searching our database, sending CVs, interview and hire. As you've heard, we're using data science, we're using machine learning, we're using analytics, and that's to make sense of the vast volumes of information that our global business and our database affords us. This doesn't just allow us to cross-reference candidates across different platforms and find the best candidates as quickly as possible, but it allows us to start to predict behaviours and provide you with an insight on what you should be offering and doing. And using that market insight to do so. So we use this sort of information in front of you to review where and how we should promote jobs. We don't just put them obviously on our own website. We have data on what sites work best for us, what roles, what time we post, the words that we use when we post it, the keywords we use in the adverts to surface on search engines and job board aggregators. But that said, we also know that some of the most powerful tools, they're still the traditional methods, such as referrals, someone recommending someone to someone else, and search, be that on CV boards or indeed social media. So how else does digital and social evolution play its part, rather? Gosh, we all know social plays an important part of today's marketing and recruitment communication channels. And we also know how seemingly simple and easy everyone thinks it is, but actually how hard it can be, and that it requires significant commitment of resources to do it well. So it's a bit like marketing, it's a bit like recruitment. Everyone thinks that they can do it. So looking at social, it's far more accessible than a job board, particularly when you look at some of the statistics on that slide in front of you. So a potential candidate is checking their smartphone on one of those up to 150 occasions per day. 20% of that time is actually spent on social. This is data that's widely available in the market. And if this is growing, why wouldn't you want a social presence for your organisation and to help, obviously, with your employer brand? That's quite staggering, 150 times a day. I must keep one of those logs one day to see if I do anything like that myself. I actually hope not. This is our digital and social media presence as a global overview, and I mentioned those a few slides ago, but the numbers certainly speak for themselves, and you can see how much investment that we're making in that area of our business. Again, something that just wasn't necessary or available back in the late 90s, early 2000s. But why are we doing it? Well, it's having the right people in the network. So we're doing it to target passive candidates. And as you can see, this is a pie chart, a good old classic means of displaying the data that helps to break up and look at the potential candidate pool for any given vacancy that you recruit for, and break it down into what actually happens in the market. So at any one time, only 25% of the potential candidate pool is actively seeking a job. So that's 25% of people that might be looking on the job boards, looking for a role and applying for something when they find something of interest. You can then see people that are super passive, so 15% of those. So they really are not looking at anything. They're quite hard to reach. You've got your explorers that might have a little bit of a search from time to time, or they might have a few search criteria set up, but whether they get the time or bother to actually read those job profiles when they come through, and saying tiptoers will explore occasionally, but not really have anything sort of proactive set up in the market. And so all of the work that we do around content and the approachability index, all of that helps us to build trust and widen our reach. Because when you need to hire, when you decide to look, around 75% of your potential candidate pool, our potential candidate pool, is passive. Simply posting jobs and traditional recruitment limits your reach massively, as I hope that diagram demonstrates to you. And it's easy to forget that career change is a pretty stressful life decision, moving house, changing jobs. We all know the sayings. We're hardwired to be resistant to change because we're overestimating the probability of failure, and actually I see that an awful lot when it comes to people looking for jobs. So what you could say is that people often only change jobs when they are inspired by new opportunities or extremely disillusioned with their current role. And so that's where we engage with these people through the content strategy. So it's content that they want to engage with not only when they're looking for a new job, but content that helps them to start to think about their next stage, helps them to get to that next stage, and content that keeps us front of mind for when they do get to the job hunt stage. It's also worth keeping in mind that, unsurprisingly, people want to feel in control of their own job search. And so before accepting a new job, 76% of people feel the need to have looked for other opportunities for comparison. So even if they did find your job advert, for example, out there on the web, they will also, in the majority, need to look at other jobs. And 73% want to consider jobs alongside the one that they've been approached about. And that data comes from Indeed, for those of you that have come across the job board aggregator. So when you do approach passive people as part of a search, you've just turned that passive and exclusive person into a job seeker, so you're wanting to ensure that your employer brand is extremely attractive. And this is ultimately how that process, and indeed it is a process, works for us at Hays. You can follow that process through and read the 2 or 3 bullet points there. But the most important bit for me, talking to you and your businesses when you potentially need to think about hiring, is the outcome there is the most important thing. The best qualified candidate as quickly as possible to help you with speed to appointment is the ultimate outcome. And that's where when you think back to lean process and how efficient it can all be, it's still the big sort of red flashing light for me is about the customer satisfaction, because ultimately that is the end point. In the interests of time, I just popped there's a couple of slides here, just again thinking and sort of putting in context when you look at recruitment as a lean process, and you look at the amount of compliance that has to be done, an assessment of those individuals, removing as much as possible from the front end consultants into central teams, for example, is a key example in our business of how we are ensuring the consultants are spending more time on the value add piece. And we've implemented a dedicated compliance management function that fully aligns to customer compliance requirements. So first of all, if we were working with a business, we'd carry out a complete due diligence of compliance requirements at your end, including, but of course not limited to, referencing, background checks, SLAs, code of conduct, billing processes, etc., and then tailor our delivery model to your requirements and look at how we can implement that into our systems. So that might be something like documentation of client processes, like client information sheets on the intranet, or training for everybody working on the account, for example. And all required paperwork will be managed facing both the client and the candidate side. So again, examples of that would be something like signing a non-disclosure agreement or code of conduct or any of your other relevant policies to ensure that all of your requirements would be fully serviced. So ultimately, pre-internet, job boards, LinkedIn, aggregators, and here we are today at Find and Engage. The inevitable technological change is bringing evolution to the recruitment industry as a whole. And this has meant, if you like, that Lean, in a shared services context, but Lean has almost been forced upon the recruitment industry. Or certainly it has if you want to be leading in your business and in your recruitment practice and not just surviving. In closing, I'm just going to put a couple of quotes up that I started with and think back to that opening slide. Simple goal of finding the best possible candidate for the job that's available, the best possible job for the candidate. It's that process diagram of finding the best match. It's remaining adaptable and innovative and adept at being able to respond to ever-changing customer demands. Technology helps us at every single step of the way, but only if we let it enable it and let it free up that time for our consultants, for any recruitment practitioner to spend time on the most value-add activities. Technology can help you with making your employer brand stand out. Haven't had so much chance to touch on that today, but always really happy to pick up on individual inquiries about that, or indeed run another webinar with the forum. Technology can help persuade and sell your organisation along with the people. It can help screen candidates. It can automate back-end processes, many of which are so wasteful in recruiting. It can enable the relationship-led recruiter to use their art, and it can give that recruiter the freedom to quickly move into areas that need attention. And I count that for any recruitment practitioner. We have to be agile and knowing where there's suddenly a skills shortage or where a more urgent demand comes up in an organisation is key. I do think that most recruiting functions could find many steps in their recruiting processes that could be eliminated, procedures that could be streamlined or automated by the use of technology, and looking ahead to help find the best talent, looking at artificial intelligence and analytics and how you use that within the business is really key. I think while manufacturing has applied technology and Lean widely to reduce the number of workers, improve speed and quality, recruitment potentially still has quite a long way to go, but I do hope that the last half an hour or so has showed you that we're certainly on the journey at Hays, and I hope that our case study shows you how much we are embracing this mixture of art and science and the Find and Engage model so that we are fit for purpose to help you find the best talent when you do need to recruit. So thank you for listening. I hope it's provided some insight into the recruitment industry itself, the journey that we've been on, sort of from pre-internet to Find and Engage, some of the things that we're having to take into account at Hays on our journey towards being leaner in recruitment as well, something we spoke about quite a lot at the forum. If people have got questions, please do post them on the Q&A tab that my colleague mentioned at the start. Equally, you can see my contact details on the screen in front of you. If people are feeling particularly shy, or they're also thinking, how on earth am I going to get home through the ice and snow and wind, I do understand it's been a difficult week, and really appreciate the time you've taken to come onto the webinar. And also, of course, you can find me on LinkedIn as well. My profile's up there. I've got a question that's just come through. How has the new Find and Engage model proven to be more successful than traditional recruitment methods? Do you know what? I don't think it has yet, is the honest answer to that. I think it is starting to be more successful, but it's more about what it's going to be in the future, and that we constantly talk, well, in the recruitment market, we talk about how people are expecting to be found now, that people sort of, well, if I put my profile on here, I don't need to look for a new job because that's just the way that recruitment works these days, and there's lots of people mining lots of data, and they will find me. So it's always that risk, I suppose, when people ask me as a potential job seeker, and they say, Karen, do I need to be on LinkedIn? You know, what happens if I'm not? And I say, well, look, it's probably not going to be detrimental in an interview process that someone says to you, I noticed you weren't on LinkedIn. If you fit the skills and criteria for that job, and you're you're the best person for the job. Just being not on LinkedIn is not going to mean that you don't get chosen, but it is more the fact of, if you're not on LinkedIn, you won't be found, and are you prepared not to be found for what could be the perfect job that's out there. So I think it's more about that this is the future, with a little bit of the old as well, because there's arguably still a market for advertise and apply. But I think that this will help us to fill more of those unfilled jobs out there. It will improve the speed to appointment, and I think, you know, the way that technology is changing things, that if you don't start to move to a find and engage model, it will have an impact on your ability to recruit the right talent into your business. Okay, I think there's just one other question, unless anyone's typing very quickly. What are the challenges of this new model? Resource and expertise, I'd probably sum it up as. Now, that's not necessarily a challenge for us at Hays, because our job day in, day out, every day is recruitment. If you're obviously on this webinar and you're a head of a shared services function or head of a department within a shared services function, it's very unlikely that your job day in, day out is recruitment. So whilst you can, I think, look at artificial intelligence and analytics, and certainly employ some of this best practice to help find, it's going to be what resource you can put on it, how much content can you put out of your business every day that engages job seekers. And you do need content, but you also still need, in my view, a human to engage. Nothing's absolutely certain, you know, in terms of this, of any model, in terms of, you know, will it always find you the best candidate? But I think, you know, again, in this skills scarce market, it does give you the best chance. So challenges of the new model, resource in terms of both people, but also the ability to put that content out into the right channels effectively enough. And you know, it's a race to relevance. And I think that's how I'd sum it up, is how do we use the way that technology is changing things to get to the most relevant people faster, and ensure that talent comes to you and your organisations when you need to recruit. Okay, I think that's it for the questions that have come in from today. So thank you all very much for listening, and for those that are journeying out there this evening off for the weekend, I wish you all safe journeys home. Thank you very much.